All right, all members, this meeting is now reconvened. As Vice Chair, I will now assume the role of Chair for the remainder of this meeting pursuant to Article V1B1 of OHA bylaws, um, sorry, 6B1 of OHA bylaws. This meeting remains governed by HRS Chapter 92, HRS Chapter 10, and OHA bylaws. We continue under the procedures outlined in Robert's Rules of Order for small boards. So our last item on the agenda is the evaluation of OHA Administrator Stacy K. Ferreira for the period from November 1st, 2023 to October 31st, 2024. Do we have anyone signed up to speak on this item?
No one is signed up to speak on this item.
All right, very good. Thank you so much, Lehua. All right, so the evaluation of OHA Administrator Stacy K. Ferreira, like I said, from period November 1st, 2023 to October 31st, 2024. Stacy, you're now recognized. You have the floor. Do your thing.
Mahalo, Vice Chair, trustees. I really appreciate the opportunity to basically recap for you folks all of the good work that was accomplished in year one and the dates for my performance review that we're going to be talking about today is from November 1st, 2023 to October 31st of 2024. What I've done to, because I wasn't given any guidance on how to basically present out to the board, I took it upon myself to create somewhat of a process that I'm hoping works for all of you. You have in front of you 3 separate documents. And these documents were prepared with a lot of time and effort because I thought it was very critical that as trustees that you have sufficient information because it's important. I mean, it's important for me as my professional review, but certainly for you folks to be able to really understand the depth and the breadth of the work that is the kuleana of the CEO or the Pouhana of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. The first document, it says, has my name and it's the year one performance review and it says introductory remarks. I will start with that. The second document is basically a breakdown of performance criteria responses. So my understanding is that I received criteria for my performance review that all of the trustees also received. And so what I did was I took time to look at the criteria. It's in the same packet, Chair Emerita. It's in that same one. And so if you, and I can take you through this document once I finish my introductory remarks. And then the third document is the PIA strategic and operations reports. Okay, so if I may provide you my introductory remarks. So aloha Chair, Vice Chair, and trustees. Mahalo for this opportunity to reflect on my first year as Pouhana of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. It has truly been an honor and a privilege to serve in this role. From day one, I understood the enormous kuleana entrusted to me. There was an urgency to stabilize and move the agency forward to serve you, our trustees, with integrity and excellence, and to strengthen the trust of our beneficiaries. I also want to acknowledge that recalling the work accomplishments and challenges from over a year ago can be difficult. And given the sheer volume and complexity of the efforts that are undertaken each day to operate the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. So to support you in this evaluation, I have provided a detailed breakdown of my key accomplishments and examples organized by the performance evaluation criteria. Additionally, I have included PIA reports for your reference as evidence of the OHA enterprise work efforts that I'm responsible for leading with the expert and steadfast support of the executive leadership team and executed by our PIA directors and our hardworking and dedicated staff. When I stepped into this role, the agency was facing significant challenges. We were coming out of the most disruptive period in modern history, post-COVID, and OHA was struggling with leadership transitions, lack of execution on the strategic plan, low staff morale, understaffing, beneficiary frustration, and fractured trust. On day one, when I stepped into my new office, there was no transition plan, no files, no desktop procedures waiting for me, just a short task list and numerous mandates from trustees to address the numerous organizational challenges. Year one was a true turnaround effort. a year of listening, rebuilding, stabilizing, realigning, and recommitting. Mahalo nui for the opportunity to share with you how I've led and navigated these challenges together and with the support of you, the Board of Trustees, and our administration. What I will be sharing is not an exhaustive list of all that was accomplished in year one, but it does highlight major efforts that occurred in year one of my tenure. I'd like to start with agency stabilization and compliance. Successful implementation of the BOT mandated return to office for all OHA staff, restoring full in-person operations after years of pandemic-related disruptions and quarantine. Rebuilt leadership capacity, hired the HR director, chief operating officer. The chief operating officer that was in the position when I came eventually left, and so I had to hire a new chief operating officer. The hiring of chief advocate, a senior director of Hawaiian Cultural Affairs, and ultimately 2 directors of community engagement. I also elevated the endowment director to the executive leadership team. Addressing staff morale concerns over lack of salary adjustments by implementing a one-time 5% cost of living allowance for all staff. This effort was a stopgap solution to provide salary relief to staff who did not have a salary increase in 3 years. The COLA payment was a temporary solution to get us to an all OHA salary releveling that was scheduled for January 2025, which was planned to be included in the FY 26 and 27 biennium budget. We began planning and implementation efforts for a new performance management system to align with and support fiscal year 25 salary releveling, coupled with annual staff merit-based performance increases, standardized position descriptions for equity and recruitment, and repurposed vacancies to staff critical positions and PIA staff shortages. We implemented workplace violence, trauma-informed care, and active shooter training, established emergency operation plans, and installed office security card readers and beneficiary check-in stations at NLK. To ensure the safety and well-being of staff and visitors at NLK, we implemented on-site security services to be contracted to strengthen protection at OHA headquarters. We relocated the Maui and Hilo offices, reactivated Nalamakukui common areas with Hawaiian cultural activities, and closed the vacant DC office to optimize resources. We completed internal financial audits for OHA and the Native Hawaiian Revolving Loan Fund, executed budget realignments 2 and 3. The endowment director completed a 10-year cash flow forecast to inform and align to Manaʻi Mauleola. Additionally, the endowment director resumed active management of OHA's investment portfolio with a focus on re-upping new private equity investments. We increased Kaka'ako Makai revenue from $2 million to $3.9 million through market rate lease negotiations and activating Lot I. Advanced Wahiawa Repi Grant, $2.2 million for year 1 and $8.8 million over a 5-year projected timeline. We engaged Peregrine Consultants to draft OHA's real estate strategy, mission, and vision. We completed the land audit and cleaned up the Kaka'ako Makai contracting. We moved beneficiary services back to community engagement with a focus once again on being outwardly facing and providing more hands-on kokua with navigation of OHA programs and services, workshops, and community meetings. We moved communications under the COO for better functional area alignment and leadership support. In terms of trustee relationships and priorities, I engaged in weekly one-on-ones with the BOT chair and monthly individual trustee meetings to go over priorities and address concerns or questions. Bi-monthly preparation meetings for BAE and RM committees and the BOT chairs was also accomplished. I delivered on various trustee priorities, $5 million in Maui Wildfire Kanaho Grant program, which was Chair Emerita Lindsay's priority, iwi kupuna issues and addressing them as they were surfacing on Kauaʻi was Trustee Ahuna's priority. Aho, the access to home ownership of addressing housing for our beneficiaries was Trustee Susan Waihe'e's priorities. The NHA Academy, Trustee Galuteria's, and the OHA real estate strategy was Trustee Akina's. We also supported the Public Land Trust Working Group and Crown Government Lands legislation, kupuna housing PIG for Molokaʻi, and exploration of potential kumakahi transfer, advanced the Trustee Salary Commission, and streamlined BOT sponsorship process. And you might hear me say we instead of I, because truly the work at OHA, even though I am the Pouhana, this is a collective kako effort. None of this work can be done solely by one person. For beneficiary trust and engagement, we held BOT Island community meetings on all islands, and after numerous beneficiary comments of lack of follow-up from previous year meetings, we created Mea'ai and Mana'o. These fall and spring community sessions would provide beneficiaries with OHA's follow-up actions based on their concerns, and we launched Mea'ai and Mana'o on Molokaʻi and Kauaʻi. And as we just rounded up our meetings on Molokaʻi and Kauaʻi, I know that the trustees heard over and over again from beneficiaries who appreciated and were very vocal about how pleased they were that OHA is finally following up and listening to them, hearing their concerns, and actually coming back with solutions. We preserved Lahaina historical collections that were lost in the wildfires, updated the Papakilo database to 492 Kawaiʻola issues, and within Kawaiʻola, archiving 417, 352 articles. We launched OHA's first evergreen commercial spots, and our communications team won 8 Indigenous Journalist Association awards. Under strategic alignment and opportunities, I established the Office of Strategy and Implementation for the remainder of our Manaʻi Mauliola 15-year plan execution. Hired the S&I Senior Director, Directors of Education, Health Outcomes, Housing and Economic Stability, and Strategy Consultants throughout Q3 and 4 of FY24 and Q1 and 2 of FY25. Throughout fiscal year 24, S&I worked with R&E to refresh our Manaʻi Mauliola indicators and targets. This was an intentional pause, as directed in action item BOT number 20-07, approval of strategic plan 2020-2035, a 3-year check-in course correction. When this board hired me, it forced an inflection point on Manaʻi Mauliola. So there was a resetting and a relooking at each strategic direction, strategies, outcomes, targets, and indicators. Each strategy and implementation director worked with stakeholders during fiscal year 24-25 to develop tactics for the fiscal year 26-27 biennium budget process. Planning and pre-implementation of a dashboard system to monitor, track, and report Manaʻi Mauliola outcomes internally and externally was scoped for the biennium budget. We advanced Aina-back initiatives in partnership with the Office of the Governor, City and County of Honolulu, and County of Kauaʻi for Mauna Kaneola Heao Complex, Waimanalo, Nation of Hawaii, and Ahupua'a o Kahana and Wailupe. Potential transfers of Kualapu'u Reservoir on Molokaʻi and Anahola water diversions, which would enable DHHL pastoral, agricultural, and residential homesteading. Advanced Kihavahine and other iwi kupuna repatriation efforts address Naue, Kauaʻi iwi disturbances, and compliance issues. Increased international engagement. OHA signed the Tu'uruma Ariki Declaration at FESPAC, attended pre-Talanoa planning events in Fiji, and participated in the Austronesian Forum. We also participated in legislator meetings with BAE Chair Akaka to share out new legislative primers of OHA's accomplishments by district, our Manaʻi Mauliola strategic plan focus areas, and OHA session agenda. We addressed legislators' questions and concerns, and I presented out on OHA's 2024 supplemental budget to House Finance. Under leadership and communications, I was selected as an Omidyar Fellow for Cohort 9 and also selected for Partners of Democracy Program Cohort 3. I was a panelist at the Public Investment in our Economic Futures Forum, featured speaker at the 2024 OEV Leadership Accelerator Program. I was part of the Malama Ohana Working Group, and I was a facilitator of the Kanaka Poʻe Pacifica subcommittee of that Malama Ohana Working Group. I was a FESPAC commissioner, a Maui Economic Recovery Commission member. I was part of the Hawaii Executive Collaborative and Rediscovering Hawaii's Soul, where I was a member of the Hawaiian Kingdom, Crown, and Government Lands Working Group. I've written 12 Kawaiʻola articles during that time period and participated in various television and radio interviews representing the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. I also participated in cultural protocol presence at Mary Monarch, Ali'i celebrations, and at Mauna Ala, as well as our Washington, D.C. lei draping. So I've shared with you at a very high level much of the work that occurred in a 1-year period. But I'm not naive, nor am I arrogant to think that I don't have room for improvement. So I'd like to share with you areas in my own self-reflection that I believe where I can grow. In my first year as CEO, I acknowledged the learning curve, and with that came inevitable missteps and shortfalls. And my commitment to continuous improvement is grounded in my sincere desire to be a better CEO for the board, our staff, the agency, and most importantly, our beneficiaries. Through honest self-reflection, I have identified key areas where I can and will improve. The first is strengthening internal strategic communications. I recognize the need to find the right balance and the cadence for tracking, monitoring, and reporting out on strategic initiatives. Clear enterprise-wide communication, internal updates, staff briefings, and board reporting must be streamlined to ensure that everyone is aligned, informed, and moving forward together. It's a big task with everything that happens on a daily basis, and as quickly as everybody is running, it's difficult to pause to ensure that everybody is in lockstep, but I recognize how vital it is. So that's definitely something that I'm going to put attention and make a priority. Developing leadership capacity across the agency. One of my priorities in the coming year will be to design and implement a leadership development and training program for current and emerging leaders within our organization. Investing in our people is essential to building institutional resilience, succession planning, and cultivating excellence across the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. Grounding the agency in our mandates and values. I want to ensure that the entire organization is firmly grounded in Article 12 of the Hawaii State Constitution and HRS Chapter 10 and 10H. This grounding will be paired with pilina building opportunities such as Malama Aina workdays on OHA lands and at community partner sites, reinforcing our connection to our kuleana. And I really think this is important, that everybody that works at the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, not just our trustees, not just our executive leadership team, but we know why we were founded and what our charge is. Because I believe when we know who we are, we operate with a different confidence and we're able to innovate because we know what we're charged with doing and we can come with creative solutions on how to effectuate those mandates. I also want to institutionalize standard operating procedures. The creation of agency-wide standard operating and desktop procedures will be prioritized to improve consistency, accountability, and institutional knowledge retention. Expanding resources through partnerships and external funding. I see great opportunity to pursue external funding sources and building strategic partnerships that can leverage resources and technical expertise to amplify OHA's impact. I believe that with additional resources outside of OHA, we can do more for our beneficiaries. A great example of that is the MOU that we just signed with the Ulupona Initiative, who wants to bring granting technical expertise so that we can garner more funds to do work on behalf of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs in water, energy, and in other critical areas. Deepening cultural protocol mastery for leadership settings. I plan to expand my own personal knowledge and practice of cultural protocol, particularly in high-level government, international, and community spaces, as we're going to Tahiti. And it's so critical that we be able to, myself, be able to represent our culture in a way that is fitting, honoring, and respectful, so that I consistently model excellence of our Nohona Hawaii. And then lastly, developing a stronger feedback and coaching culture here at OHA. I will focus on creating structured feedback loops with my executive team, modeling openness to feedback and coaching others to provide and receive constructive feedback that drives growth. So again, starting with our executive team, modeling that, and then having that cascade down to our directors and their teams. So trustees, as I reflect on my first year, I know that we are not yet where we aspire to be, but we are no longer where we once were. Together, we have begun the hard work of stabilizing, rebuilding, and elevating the agency. The foundation has been reset, and the path forward is clearer because of the collective effort of this board, our leadership team, and our staff who show up every day with a steadfast commitment to our lahui. This work is not just my kuleana, it's my calling. I'm ready, as committed today as I was on day one, to lead with integrity, excellence, and aloha, but I cannot do this alone. With your continued support, guidance, and partnership, I will give nothing less than my best to honor the kuleana of this role. Mahalo nui for allowing me to lead, to serve, and to learn. Mahalo for walking beside me through my first season of transformation. And together, we have the ability and the kuleana to move OHA from stability to strength, from promise to impact. And the foundation is firm. The course is set, and with your partnership, we will holomua kako. Mahalo.
Mahalo ka Pouhana.
Vice Chair, if I may.
Yes.
So the next document that I'd like to bring to the attention of the trustees, again, because the criteria that you're going to be asked to fill out based on my performance, it's very lengthy and it requires detail, and it asks for examples or some kind of summary to be able to demonstrate the scores that you're going to provide on my evaluation. So what I did was I went through the evaluation, and based off of the PAIA strategic and operations reports, I pulled very specific examples and evidence for each one of those criteria. Now, that's not to say that you need to use those, but I wanted to make sure that I could extract very tangible pieces of evidence for each of those criteria. So again, these are just reference points for you, for your consideration. And then the PAIA strategic and operations reports are also provided for you. Every single division and department has provided key performance indicators of the good work that has been accomplished over that time period of my year one. And so I provide this to you as another set of data points for you to be able to peruse and determine of this work that ultimately I led with the help of our executive leadership team and the directors, and again, the good and hard work of our staff. This is representational of the work of OHA and should provide you with good context and background of what was accomplished over the year. So I will leave you with those documents. And at this time, I open it up to questions.
Members, any questions? Oh, I'm gonna go with Trustee Akina because I had him wait earlier.
Well, you can take down that's fine. The document if you like.
Trustee Alakaʻi, you're next. Trustee Akina.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate your presentation, Kauaʻi, and I'll reserve my questions for you for later. My question is actually for us as a board and the chair. Could you provide an overview of our process for evaluation? I understand there's that component today where Kauaʻi has given her input. I'm sure we're going to be able to ask her questions, but will there be a time in executive session for that as well? And also, how do we do the collating of our responses? Are we going to have a third party like Marie Kumabe handle that and so forth? Just Chair, what process?
Yeah, absolutely, Trustee Akina. There will be a third party. I'm coordinating with them, and the information will be going out following this meeting, following the opportunity for Kauaʻi to speak. And there'll be interviews and a time to express yourself, as well as potentially a time in the future to, I guess, address those evaluations in a future session. I would assume so. I haven't gotten that far yet, but as soon as we get the update, I will provide it to you.
Thank you. And will we be able to ask some questions in executive sessions? Is that appropriate today, or does that have to be scheduled?
If we feel that there is a need, if a question does come to be where we feel that we need to go into executive session, we do have that option today. So I guess we should see where we go.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Mahalo, Trustee Akina. Trustee Alapa.
First of all, Stacy, thank you so much for that, providing this extensive information about all that you've accomplished. And this is crazy what you and your team have done in 1 year. And we haven't even counted the remainder of this last year of the amount of work, the immense amount of work. And for us to have the details that you provided gives us a much clearer insight to the incredible amount of work that you folks do on the daily, and that goes right through the weekends as well. I should know, I've seen your car parked and others' cars parked out there way past 6 o'clock and so forth. So I know you folks have done an incredible job to pull OHA together based on all the things that you've outlined in the very beginning when you first arrived. Unfortunately, you were not given much to go on, and you were already on the negative in that respect. But for you to do all this in a short time to turn things around, kudos to you and your team. I'm just so grateful that you're here with us to be able to accomplish all that in this short timeline. This helps us to give us, or me, to give a better perspective of what to look out for in our report about you, so we know where to look. Otherwise, if I just had a plain paper that had everything and these are the criteria, I wouldn't know where to begin. So this helps us tremendously. Another note: when I first interviewed you and you were sitting here, we were all had our own questions and so forth. And I asked you at that time, where do you see OHA? And you had a beautiful thing. I can't recall the exact words, but right now, a year and a half later, where do you see OHA?
You know, based off of the work that has occurred over the last year and a half, I see OHA emerging as a real leader in the Hawaiian community. I see us as a beacon of hope. Our lahui needs us, and they are desperate for us to answer their calls. And I'm excited because there's just tremendous work, one that's already underway, but with our new biennium budget and the opportunities that we're going to be afforded to launch new programs, new services, and really meeting our beneficiaries where they're at. We are in a whole different trajectory than when I joined OHA a year and a half ago. And I think there is renewed hope. And I think, again, in partnership with the board and our administration, we're just on an upward trajectory, Trustee. And I'm hopeful. And I know that we're starting to reinstill hope in our communities.
Thank you for that, Stacy. That gives all of us hope, knowing that we are going in the right direction. And of course, it takes a huge team effort, not one or two, huge. That means all of us working together in harmony. Yeah, there are issues along the way that we've encountered, unexpected things pop up. We're very emotional about what we do and what we love doing for OHA and for people, obviously. And, at times things get in the way, personalities, emotions are high. And so how would you honestly deal with that? Because if we're giving you a directive, so to speak, and you may not quite agree with you, but so how are you going to be able to move forward from this point?
I don't know if it's not necessarily about agreeing. Typically, when I'm asked either to execute on something or there's a directive, I typically try to be objective of, is it illegal, immoral, unethical? That's kind of my first baseline. And what does our policies, our bylaws, what do those things dictate? What does state law dictate? And so I kind of use that as sort of my first layer of screen, if you will. And then if I'm getting some kind of now check about it, then typically I will follow up with whoever is making the request. And hopefully there can be that dialogue, right? There are times where I have been asked, to execute on something, and I may have thought differently about how to go about executing. But ultimately, if that's the request, that's what's done. But again, if it doesn't pass that first screen, And I feel that it does put the agency in any kind of risk or liability. I will state my case. And, hopefully there's an opportunity to figure out a middle ground or an alternative route to that execution.
Your tenacity, your strength, your ability to be steadfast in your values and beliefs, which is so vital today for all of us to remember where we come from and to know and understand this is about them, our people, not necessarily our own selves. But I thank you so much for what you provided this morning. Mahalo.
Thank you, Trustee. And can I just add
Sure.
to that, when the board hired me on, part of the kuleana is fiduciary responsibility, right? And ultimately, everybody here at OHA has fiduciary responsibility, not just the board. The board shoulders an immense weight of that. However, for me as a fiduciary who's fiduciarily responsible, I take the care and the malama of this board extremely serious. And what that looks like and what that means to me is that when I am doing that first screen, if you will, of is this unethical, is it immoral, is it illegal or anything, or goes against our our values as an organization or our bylaws or policies and procedures, one of the things I always think about is what side of the headline do we want to be on? What side of the headline would I want to see our trustees on? And I take the job of not just protecting this agency, the trust assets, but also the trustees. That is a huge responsibility for me, and I take it very serious. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Stacy, and mahalo, Trustee Alapa. Trustee Hona, I'm going to recognize you next, but before that, I want to go back to Trustee Aquino. Now, Trustee Aquino, I want to clarify your earlier question, if I am able to. I know you had brought up executive session. And did you have a question that potentially may justify going into executive session for today's meeting or a future meeting? And if you do, if you could potentially, I guess, kind of maybe give us an idea or the nature of the question potentially.
I don't have the specific question in mind. There were categories that I had hoped to explore that might involve asking about examples of specific personnel relationships and performances and the CEO's interaction with them. And I would certainly want to protect that kind of conversation because of the individuals involved. I don't at this point yet feel compelled to ask any particular question, but that's the nature. I did not have a specific issue in mind yet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Aquino. We'll be sure to address any concerns in the future and make sure it's appropriate time. Thank you, sir. Trustee Ahuna.
Thank you, Chair. I have no questions. I just have some comments to make, and I just wanted to just make these comments. First of all, I wanted to acknowledge and say thank you to our CEO, Kauaʻi, for actually coming up here and having her own performance review. I think that's a hard task to take on, talking about yourself. And there's some particulars inside of what you said that it really stuck to me. Being a coach, outside of OHA, one of the biggest things that I always remind my athletes is I'm not here to well, I'm not here to have all these people with a lot of talent. I'd rather be surrounded by people who's willing to do the work. And for me, that is important because if you're willing to do the work, that is the uncoachable side of people. And the one thing that was important for me to hear today, and I wanted everybody to hear this, is, we always have room to improve, and that is key. So, just wanted to thank you for all of that. Yeah. Thank you.
Trustee Akaka.
Hello, Stacy, for what you've presented, but I have to imagine the amount of time that you spent on compiling this. Um, and in terms of the process, and I'm trying to recall in the past how things have been done. So correct me if this is not the case. However, in our experience, for those who have been here prior times, I think it's where there is more of a guideline for the trustees as well as for who is serving as the administrator, that role, so that they know how to go forward. There's a clear timeline, there's clear guidelines, there's steps that are provided, and that is done. Some of it from the information we've had on hand in previous times, that's provided to the board, and that would be sent out by, say, the chief of staff. And then once we have that entity contracted to do the work that they're tasked to do in terms of the evaluation, they are in contact with, it would be Stacy, as well as the board, so that there's a coordinated effort so that we can plan accordingly, agendize it, and that we know how to go forward. And I think that's really important for us, so that she has a better understanding in how to go forward. And maybe there's some things that she was not made aware of because there might not have been assets provided to her to know this, but that we afford her the opportunity, as well as all of us involved, with what I would imagine the Kumabe team or an entity that has done this type of work, that they can guide us in that. So I would be interested in knowing maybe how soon that process would be, so that we all have a clear understanding, a guideline, and a timeline to work off of.
Yeah, sure.
Because usually there's surveys involved. It also includes OHA as an organization.
Right. So I know we all got sent, we all have an idea of what the evaluation form looks like. And that was put together in collaboration with a third party as well, in anticipation of an evaluation interview coming up soon. Like I said, right after this, we'll provide the dates. It's kind of a unique situation here where I'm kind of stepping up to take over that evaluation process, or kind of spearhead it anyway. And so as more information is provided to me, I will pass it on to you folks.
And also the nature of the timing of this, in some ways, we're going to have to segue into the next evaluation
Right.
very
right.
close in time.
Yeah.
So we'll have a fresh understanding of how to go forward with the next round.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think for us as trustees, and just like talking about the process, I think moving into the future, we want to be on time, right? And like you said, which kind of segues into what I was going to ask earlier, and not ask, but comment on. I guess the presentation kind of covered a whole bunch of things, potentially stuff that moved over into 2025. And I see it as because certain things we started when you got here, and it's not finished yet, or was completed potentially 2025. But I think this document that you provided, the PAIA Strategic Operations Report, provides the exact things that we're timeline for the things that we were able to accomplish that first year. So again, I mean, the questions we asked is pertaining to November 1st to October 31st, 2024. And so I think that's important to point out as
Yes,
well. Yeah.
and in my recollection, because of the nature of what is happening here and the comments, and some of it's considered confidential. So what would happen is that the staff, the trustees, in the evaluations, in the ratings and the comments that were made, that was then provided in executive session, so that the administrator is able to review that, have the time to review that, take into the consideration of that information. And then also the trustees as a board, we have that opportunity to review that as a group, and we have the opportunity to speak on that. I think it's also very important to give a time and space for our OHA-wide staff, as well as our beneficiaries and those that have aloha and or concerns with OHA, that they have the opportunity to have the ample time to share on their mana'o as well, and give their their thoughts at that time. Which also leads me to my next question is, do we have any testimony that of those that are trying to testify on this today?
We asked, sorry, we asked for public testimony earlier. No one had signed up.
Did?
Yeah.
All right. So I think it would be helpful if that third party can provide all of that important information. I know in our experience we've only worked with Kumabe, and Kumabe I felt was very equipped in making sure that we were kept aware of the timeline and that any kokua that was needed, that was provided. So whether it be Kumabe or any other entity, that same service would be appreciated so that our staff, our board, as well as Stacy is afforded the proper opportunity to share the mana'o on the work, the breadth, and I would say the evolutions of Stacy throughout her time here. And I think it gives a good time of reflection for our board to know how we can co-navigate this in terms of our mission and our strategic plan and how we're going to continue moving forward and what that means in terms of our advocacy and our work inside and outside of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs for our beneficiaries. Thank you.
Malo, Trustee Akaka. Yes, Trustee Lindsay.
I just want to add that Anna Sneed has been contracted to do this work. However, when I asked her what her job was, she said was just to design the questionnaire of the form that was going to be passed out to the trustees, and that's all. But that cannot be all. That person that we employed needs to be the middle person. All of our questionnaire need to go to that person or that entity, that company, and she creates the summary of what the trustees and whatever each one of us say. That's our business, not anybody else's business. So the comments got to be lined up from all of the questionnaire. And that's what Kumabe did for us in the past. Yeah. And it was brought back to the board in one document, what everybody said.
Noted, Trustee Lindsay. And yes, Kumabe was not involved in this process. And
No.
Kumabe was not this time around for a CEO evaluation. And so, yes, we had reached out to them to put together the evaluation form. But that is noted, and Trustee Akaka as well. I think we can work on that for this process instead of future processes going forward. And so we'll definitely make note of that, your concerns, before we conduct that process. I think that's fair to say. Any other trustees? Trustee Akaka.
The other thing I'm recalling right now is at that time with the way our organization was the layout of our committees was where it was with BAE and RM, where we were the committees that co-chaired the facilitating of the hiring. And John, maybe you can remind me to
It's the hiring, not, it wasn't the evaluation though.
In terms of the evaluation.
No, we didn't do the evaluation.
Was that in the board level?
Board level, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. So I don't want this meeting to get away from us, because the point of this meeting was to have Stacy present and wasn't so much about the process. And that can be a discussion at a later time as we proceed with the process and more information is provided to us. I don't want to say anything that's not correct today and give you wrong information as well. So if there's any questions that you want to direct to Stacy, again, from November 1st, 2023 to October 31st, 2024, Trustee Akina.
Thank you, Chair. Well, as we take a look at this period of time, that 1 year from November 1st, 2023 to October 31st, 2024, that's a milestone year. You came in during that year, and it actually ended at an interesting point. It ended before a new board came to be. So we're going back into the past and looking at that year. I have to do a little mental gymnastics to do that. But if you go back into the past and see yourself at the end of that year in which you came in, what would you say what were the biggest things that you had accomplished at that point, and what were your hopes for where they would go in the future of OHA?
Mahalo, trustee. That's a great question. Questions. The beautiful part about doing a retrospective review is that I kind of know where the story goes or how it ends, in some respects. You know, it was very clear by this board when I was hired, that there were very specific things that were required of me or being requested of me. The first was the return to office. And, you know, that was difficult. It was 2 previous CEOs were not successful in getting our teams back to their work sites. And I was proud that we were able to accomplish that. However, that did come with some trauma and kaumaha attached to that. So it wasn't just procedural. There was a lot of pilina building that had to be done from get-go. Because here I was, the new Pouhana coming in saying, come back. You know, and for the most part, the staff, you know, appreciated being able to work from home. And felt as if, you know, they were doing fine in terms of getting the work done and being productive. But when they came back into the work sites, you know, it came back with a lot of hurt feelings and just from previous years of reorganizations and leadership changes, seeing beloved colleagues leave. There was a lot of work that I had to do in addition to just getting people back to the office. And so it was recognizing that it's not just policy or process, but we have very dedicated people that were hurt. And there was a culture here at OHA that needed to be addressed. And so that has been a work in progress. It doesn't change overnight. And part of the work that we put into place, we did the trauma-informed care training to really address some of the deep-seated eha that folks had. And because a lot of that trauma-informed care training is, one, how do we malama self? But then how do we also malama those who have trauma, which many of our beneficiaries have. So the return to office was a big feat. And I'm proud to say that we were able to accomplish that. That was one of the major things that the board wanted done. The other thing was the vacancies, and the vacancies persist. And, that's not an effort that changes overnight either. However, I want to stress that, and actually you'll see in the report from HR that just through natural attrition, right? You get folks leaving because they resign, we separate from them, they retire, and then we had our existing vacancies. And based on the data, I was able to reduce those vacancies by half. So not only was I able to fill positions that were vacated by just natural attrition, we didn't add any, we actually reduced some of the existing vacancies. So that's pretty huge, because if I just had to work on vacancies alone and not talk about natural attrition, that would have been one thing. But now you're talking about 2 sets of vacancies that I had to address simultaneously. It's a huge effort. And we did that. And I will tell you, after I was hired, the number one role that they wanted me to fill immediately was the HR director. And, but there were a host of positions, leadership positions that were key that needed to get filled. Community engagement, advocacy. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank, but there were a whole bunch at that leadership level, director level, and at the executive team level. Our general counsel, right? At that time was an interim, and he was also the HR director. So just addressing vacancies was a huge, focus of mine. The salary commission was another major priority. And, I worked very closely with Chair Emerita on that, and we bird dogged that first year. And here we are, right? Our trustees finally have pay parity. But that didn't come without effort. It wasn't a simple 1 or 2 meetings. It was literally monthly or sometimes it was like weekly. And having very candid conversations with the governor's office, to get that moving. So, I mean, these were just some of the things that you as a board told me, like this, and then Mana i Mauliola, get that plan moving. If I had to recall, those are probably the top 4 initiatives, and they're all big lifts. Many of them, have interdependencies that sometimes are out of my control. But it takes leadership, it takes resilience, it takes, just sheer willpower to power through. But I was happy to do the work. Yeah. So
Mahalo.
those are some that come to mind.
Thank you.
You are-
Mahalo, Stacy. Anyone else? Trustee Huna. You. Oh,
Okay, I'm sorry, I gotta go again.
no, Trustee Huna, go ahead.
Aloha. The only reason why I'm speaking again is because there's people watching right now, and they wanted to. The question was asked, what is some of your significant things that you've done? I think she didn't even mention one of the biggest, but her time in Naue on Kauaʻi. So it's from our people. It says, "Aloha mai kako, we are writing to express our strongest support for Administrator Stacy K. Pereira as part of her evaluation for the period of November 1st, 2023 to October 31st, 2024. Stacy has been an integral part of our hui as we work to improve care of iwi kupuna on Kauaʻi. Since meeting Stacy during a critical time for our community in the midst of a battle to protect iwi kupuna at our construction site at Naue, we have witnessed firsthand the kind of leadership, aloha, and accountability that is too often missing in state aupuni. Stacy showed up alo I alo to took the time to kilo and understood our concerns. She never spoke over us or made empty promises. She stood with us. From that day forward, Stacy and her entire hui have continued to respond to our needs and questions with respect and timeliness. Sadly, we have become accustomed to being ignored or brushed aside by some aupuni agencies. But Stacy and her hui make us feel seen, heard, and treated as Kanaka with deep connections to our aina and to our kupuna. The level of follow through with experience with her is rare and deeply meaningful. Stacy's approachability and humility allow her to build a trusting relationship with community members. She leads with kuleana, not ego. Her leadership has brought us hope in our relationship with OHA, especially for those of us on the front line of iwi kupuna protection. We see in her someone who understands the true mission of OHA to uplift and serve the lahui, protect cultural practices, and advocate for the rights and interests of Kanaka Maoli. Equally important, she has built a hui that reflects those same values. They listen, communicate clearly, respond promptly, and follow through. That is a testament to her leadership and vision. For these reasons, we urge you to recognize and uplift Stacy K. Ferreira, continued leadership as administrator. She is truly an example of our kind of public servant we need, who is grounded in aloha, action, and accountability. Please feel free to contact us if we provide any further information or support. Mahalo for your time and consideration. Meka Oya I'o, Megan Wong, Paula Chandler, Sharon Godfrey, Nahaleo Nawe.
Mahalo, Trustee Huna. Any other trustees? Questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, Kauaʻi, thank you so. Trustee Akaka.
Mahalo. I think always the guideline, the North Star that we can look towards is if we're asking ourselves, each and every one of us, if we're doing it right, we always have to go back to what the mission is, to what the strategic plan is. So my question to you, Stacy, is between your first, what was it, November 1st? November 1st of 2023, and then that time frame to 2024, what was it, October 31st? I could say up until now too, but what would you say were some of the strongest points in how you're meeting that? And on top of that, as a board, what is good for us to understand and for our staff to know, and what guidelines you need and understanding you need for us to be able to properly do this evaluation? What guidance do you need? Like, what are the biggest pukas that you're seeing so far, and how we can best move forward?
Okay, I'll take the first one regarding the strategic plan. Again, I heard it very loud and clear that the board didn't feel like MIMO was getting the traction that it wanted to see. And when I came on, like I said, it was an inflection point by the trustees, because in the board action, when you folks approve the strategic plan, it requires a 3-year pause to reflect and see if there needs to be a refresh or a pivot. Although that didn't happen in year 3, it happened in year 4 because I came in. And that was the board saying, we need to re-look at this and we need to move. And so although that inflection point didn't happen the year prior, it did happen. And so coming in, looking at the current structure that was in place. So there was a strategy management team. I retooled that to re-envision a strategy and implementation team that was designed around the strategic functions that were called out in the plan. So that meant creating teams that were knowledgeable, expert, had networks, understood the ecosystems around education and Hawaiian culture-based learning. We needed to have a team that understood housing. We needed a team that understood health outcomes and all of the things that come with health outcomes, incarceration, I mean, that is just a jam-packed strategic outcome, and then economic resilience. And so reimagining and revamping the team to have specific individuals that could look at what you folks had approved in the strategic plan, review the indicators and the tactics that had been previously outlined, and really reimagine what they could be, because essentially what was approved in 2020, times have changed, right? You folks had COVID, right? The world was different in 2024 by that time, right? And even the resources that were available to the Office of Hawaiian Affairs had shifted, right? So it was a good time to be able to have this new team come in and look at the tactics, the indicators, and do a refresh. And that's what they did over that 12-month period. And again, they didn't all come on at once, so they kind of were staggered. You know, I hired them in a kind of one after another. But they got down to the business and they started meeting with stakeholders. So this wasn't the tactical plans that they created, the refresh of the indicators was not done in a vacuum. These people came with existing networks in these areas, and they went out into community. And you will see that in this strategy and implementation report, how many stakeholder meetings that they attended. And I think that's the missing piece, because prior it was, how do we create tactics based off of every division here, and how do we execute on the plan? But it was more scattershot than it was precision. And it was internally focused versus us going out and saying, what are the needs of our Native Hawaiian focused charter schools? If that is the true intent of this outcome, we needed to be out talking to those po'okula or to those po'okumu. And that's what Anuhea did. And you'll see in the report how many different stakeholder meetings each one of those directors did to help inform the tactics and the action plans that they came up with, and the resourcing. because that's what was put forward in the biennium budget. All of those programs and services that were put forward by strategy and implementation was the outcome, the output of over 8 months worth of stakeholder investment, discussion, collaboration with research and evaluation, with advocacy. That was the culmination of that work. Well, what was put forward in that plan, that budget. Now, it didn't necessarily play out. Well, that work didn't necessarily see the light of day, which is unfortunate, and I'm hoping that we can bring it back to the board with action items to, bring them back, because there was a lot of work that was informed by community and by our partners.
Steve,
But that was the work, yes.
sorry. We're not referring to the budget, are we?
Huh?
Are we referring to a budget or recent events or bring it back to the board, action items?
Yeah.
No, I just want to bring it back again.
Yeah.
No disrespect, but just,
Yeah, so those are the things that, mahalo.
yeah,
Vice Chair.
sorry.
So, no, thank you. So those are the things that I'm most proud of, is in the very short amount of time, we were able to get individuals who wanted to come to OHA and implement on a plan and hit the ground running and basically put together phenomenal plans for the biennium budget in a very short period.
Well, I also want to acknowledge, and for you to answer that next question is, because it reminds me, I have been vocal when I do not always agree with some of the methodology on how you've done things in the recent past. And I appreciate the vulnerability and honest reflection that you are providing to us with this, almost like a pre-evaluation. That's how I see this. And when you had mentioned also you're using the word we instead of I, because this is a kako effort, I appreciate that, because it reminds me when you were first at OHA and you were testifying in the finance committee, I had given you some of my recommendations and I see that you're applying it. So thank you.
Mahalo, Trustee Akaka, and
Can she also answer what pukas there are, and so how she can best go forward with the evaluation?
how she can best go forward with her evaluation?
Yes, like what we need to know that she needs out of this. What support does
Sorry.
she need?
If you could clarify the question one more time, sorry, just so I know if this is a question
In
or
her
a comment.
experience in
Right.
doing this, what I'll call a pre-evaluation, year one performance review, what does she need? What has she found that she needs from us, a clear understanding to best go forward in this?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to answer that, but I also want to say that we do have an evaluation sheet. So trustees, I need to be honest and need to express themselves. And there will be a future discussion as to what we need to work on. So I think that's the appropriate time, but I'm going to, please, Stace, it's your time.
Thank you, Trustee and Vice Chair. I think at this point in the process, because like I said, I wasn't given direction on how to do this part of it. So what I tried to do again is think about it from the trustee's perspective and what is it you're going to need.
I mean, maybe this was premature,
To
Sorry, Stacy, continue.
Oh, yeah. So I just wanted to make sure that you folks had enough data, because a year and a half is a long time to try to reflect back on. So I just wanted to make sure you felt prepared and you had the information. I appreciate the opportunity to certainly provide remarks and take questions and answer them for you. I think what will be helpful for me going forward in the process is I look forward to that opportunity of getting, a third-party report and having an opportunity to sit in executive session with the trustees as my bosses to debrief on that and to get the feedback. And then also, because for me, it's not just about all the things that I did right, but also things that I have an opportunity to improve on. And then again, how are we gonna move forward together into, the time that we have, together as a board and me as your CEO. I think that would be really helpful for me to know the timeline for that. And yeah, just to have a clear understanding of what this process is going to be from this point out.
Mahalo ka Pouhana. All right, members, we're going to move on to community concerns and celebrations. Next item on the agenda. Do we have anyone signed up to testify?
No one is signed up to testify.
All right. All right. Then next we move on to announcements. Our next BOT meeting will be on Thursday, August 7th, 2025. And also trustees will be leaving for Tahiti this Saturday on the 26th. And I don't believe there's any under trustee Alakaʻi. Chief of War, whoever is attending the Chief of War event at the Bishop Museum, whoever signed up and RSVP'd, you guys know who you are. That is happening tomorrow as well. Any other announcements, members? Yes, Trustee Akina. Oh, microphone.
Of my aide, Karina, you can fill in the details. In Waimanalo, there will be an event coming up. I believe it's this weekend. Do you have the details? Yes, I can't find it.
Here it is.
Thank you very much. One of our staff has a relative who's being honored. This is La Ho'iho'iea o Waimanalo. It will take place on Saturday, July 26th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Community leaders will be honored there, including Kalani Ohelo, a powerful and fearless advocate for justice, a teacher of truth, a voice for our people. He's also the father of our very own Ku'ike, Ohelo Kamakea, director of Ida Momona. So that's Saturday, July 26th, Waimanalo, 9 to 5.
All right, members, thank you for the announcements. Once again, ka Pouhana, thank you so much. We look forward to moving towards closing out this second year and a future evaluation on top of the one that we need to complete. But thank you for your service and thank you for all you're doing. And look forward to reading the report. Get some friendly reminders as to what we did and what we've accomplished. So mahalo nui. All right, members, next thing on the agenda is adjournment. Can I get a motion, please?
So move.
All right, motion made by Trustee Ahuna. Can I get a roll call vote, please, Lehua?
Trustee Ahuna? Trustee Akaka?
Aye.
Trustee Akina?
Hi,
Trustee Alapa? Trustee Galutaria has left the meeting. Trustee Lindsay? Trustee Souza?
Aye.
Trustee Waihe'e?
Yes.
Chair Kahele left the meeting. We have 7 yes votes. We are adjourned.
Mahalo, members. Thank you.